Right, so eligible first-time voters in this year's general elections have until tomorrow, Friday, the 23rd of February, to register on the Electoral Commission of South Africa's online portal platform or by visiting the Commission's local offices. This as the election date of the 29th of May 2024, announced by President Cyril Ramaphosa, is expected to be proclaimed and gazetted by midnight tomorrow. The IEC's previous two registration weekends saw 1.2 million new voters added to the voters' roll since November 2023, with more than 350,000 new registrations of young people. Currently, the voters' roll stands at 27.6 million voters. To give us an update on the IEC's readiness to hold the 2024 National and Provincial elections, we are joined by IEC Vice-Chairperson Janet Love. Janet, great to have you. Thanks very, very much for joining us.
Thank you, Leanne, and good morning to you and the observers of the program.
No problem.
Your listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. The viewers. I know you're in election mode. Observers are exactly what I can imagine you thinking of right now. And obviously, I mean, now you know that the elections on the 29th of May, the IEC obviously welcoming the President's announcement of this year's elections. How are you guys feeling? Are you on track? Are you ready for this?
We are on track, we are ready, and I think we're feeling pleased because we know that when the country as a whole has certainty of the date, people focus, people get themselves ready, because as you know, elections can't happen just with the Commission, they happen with all the participants, contestants, voters, and so on. So we're excited that the country can be ready, and as you've said in your introduction, we're hoping that these last hours, today and tomorrow, up until 12 o'clock, people do everything they can to get their registration sorted out so that they are part of a very important process.
Let me just clarify you, up until 12 o'clock, are you saying up until midnight tomorrow or 12 in the afternoon? Because this is important.
Correct.
So midnight tomorrow.
No, it's up until midnight tomorrow night, and then the voters' roll closes. Because we're expecting a proclamation tomorrow.
Okay.
And so it's on the day of proclamation. So we're expecting the President and Premiers to issue their proclamations, and then the voters' roll will close on at midnight.
So that is a big shout out to South Africans, because once the voters' roll is closed, once the date and it's all been proclaimed, that's it. If you haven't registered, you cannot vote. And that is a very important point I think we need to push through during this interview. So, I mean, let's just clarify that. There's no way that if you haven't registered, there's a little loophole.
Unfortunately not. You know, I know that, you know, if for some people, the reality doesn't dawn until almost the day of voting. And also sometimes for younger people who might be 17 today, but will be 18 in May, please register, because when you are 18, if you're 18 by the 29th of May, you can vote, but you need to be registered before the voters' roll closes.
Another, I suppose, important question as well. If somebody they saw the date, then they realize they're away, or they're not going to be in their area where they are registered to vote. What happens then? Are there ways of maneuvering around that as well?
Well, once we, after the proclamation, an election timetable will be discussed with the Party Liaison Committee, and it will then be gazetted. And in that timetable, there will be an opportunity for voters to inform the Chief Electoral Officer that they are going to be in other parts of the country, not in their own voting district or somewhere else. And depending on where that place, well, first of all, that will then be captured, and that permission will then be, there's a period in the timetable when that possibility is open for people to notify the Chief Electoral Officer. Obviously, if somebody is going to be voting at a voting station in their own province, they will be able to vote both for the provincial and the national election, because they'll still be in their own province. But if they are in another part of the country or outside of the country, they will then have to be clear that they won't be able to vote in their provincial election, but they will be able to vote in the national election. So that means you'll be able to have the one ballot. If you are not in your own province, you'll have the one ballot that enables you to vote for the National Assembly, but you won't have the two ballots, one that enables you to vote for somebody from your province for the National Assembly, and one to vote for somebody in your own provincial legislature. You can only do that if you are in your own province.
All right, important point for people to note. So if you are not at that voting station, you are somewhere else, you can still vote in the national elections, but not in the provincial. So you will get one ballot, not two ballots. So that's a very, very important one. Yeah, young people are really heeding the call from what I'm gathering from some of the numbers, especially young people under the age of 29. I mean, they account for 47% usage of the IEC's online registration portal, with females more likely to use the online portal than males, sitting at 58%. It's a nice, interesting statistic. So tell me, am I right? Have young people heeded the call to register for election? Do you think we'll see a different turnout this year?
Look, we certainly hope so. We've been engaging with young people over the last few years, and we're very clear that most of the young people in our country are not in any way disengaged from political activity, but many of them just haven't seen elections as the platform. And we're encouraging young people to recognize their own importance, their numbers, and to come out in those numbers to make a huge difference. So we're hopeful, and we have seen some changes in attitude to elections, but we do know young people are engaged, and we think this is a vital platform for them, Leanne.
How are you feeling in terms of turnout? I think it's a very big conversation, because that's all I'm hearing about right now, is that as much as there are political parties out there that all have they're on a sales mission right now, because they want people to vote for them. But the voter turnout is going to be the force behind these elections. And voter turnout has always been one that's looked at and questioned, and people feel very despondent. But from the voter registration, from what you're seeing, is there a different vibe around regarding the elections?
Well, we are certainly seeing some anticipation and excitement in the elections that are coming up, because people are anticipating that there could be new entrants, there could be changes. We've got independent candidates, we've got various new players, but also we've got some of the represented political parties really going all out to reach not just their current support base, but to expand it. So all of that mobilizes people, because when political parties are out there, when candidates are out there and their supporters are talking, that really does mobilize people. Obviously, within the process, there are very important moments, and we, as soon as the election timetable is published, hope that we'll have an opportunity to share that with you and through you with the South African population. The timetable really stipulates some very important things. Firstly, when do people have the chance to look at the voters' roll, to check the voters' roll, to be able to object or indicate that the voters' roll is okay, and to make sure not just that their names are on, but as political parties, that the voters' roll can be certified. We'll then be publishing the voting stations. And so that list will be available to people, so people, particularly new voters, will be able to be even more familiar. And then it's about the candidates. The candidates' nominations will also appear in the timetable. And when people can identify not just that political parties will contest, but which political parties, that political parties have got candidates, but which candidates. So all of those are moments in the timetable which will really, I think, enable people to feel additional possibilities and have additional debate. So just like when you apply to vote at a different voting station, that's in the timetable. all of these other things are provided for in the timetable as well.
Okay, very important. There are a couple of outstanding issues, though, and one of them is the IEC wanting the signature requirements matter finalized before the whole election comes about, because we're sitting at a really big portion where an essential function underpinning a free and fair election is the rules have to be transparent, and this is all behind the Rivonia Circle and BOSA, the litigation if there was uncertainty regarding these signature requirements. This is hanging over. What's going on with this?
Well, as you know, the signature requirement was put forward to the courts last year. And at that time, we went to court to indicate the nature of the urgency. And that urgency caused the court to say that it would try and resolve all the matters to do with signatures by September. As you know, that only happened later towards the end of the year. The reason that for us it's critical is because our candidate's nomination, our political party nomination process has an electronic system that has to be tested and verified and has to be live.
Yeah.
Now, we're already having to go live with some of those issues, but in addition to that, we have a timetable that's running with deadlines. We have indicated to the court that we would abide, but in terms of the fact that the train has already left the station some time ago, and now that we have the country mobilized for the 29th, many more trains leave the stations. So the extent to which this is something that the courts are going to be able to deal with with sufficient speed, we don't know. Up until now, that unfortunately these cases have not been able to be processed as speedily as maybe the court would have liked. We'll wait and see, and I'm sure the other parties will also put their arguments to the court, and I've no doubt will stress the urgency.
All right. My final question to you. That ballot paper, what is it going to look like? Because we know that when we were talking, there were 350 parties registered with the IEC to contest. It doesn't mean all of them are going to participate, but there are so many new parties. What is it looking like?
Well, that was around that number of political parties, but don't forget that excluded independent candidates.
Yes.
So what will it look like? It will look like something that we will present to the nation as soon as we have a clearer idea of which political parties that are registered qualify and intend and qualify to contest, and which independent candidates do likewise. Once we have that, we will be able to design a ballot paper to ensure that it is as easily it's something that is as easy as possible for voters to navigate. But obviously we will be having all the processes that we usually have to ensure that the sequencing of the ballot is subject to the draw, a public draw of who's at the top and so on, because all of these things are important.
Indeed.
But we can't tell you now. We'll only be able to tell you once that time arises.
And it will be very soon. It will be soon. Janet Love, good luck. Thank you very much for joining us, IEC Vice-Chairperson, talking to us about the IEC's readiness now to hold the 2024 National and Provincial elections, the date, the 29th of May.